Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Soul Sisters podcast. We have taken about a month worth of a hiatus, and we're going to talk about why today. But we're grateful that you're back in this space with us. We do want to provide just a heads up that this episode will discuss things that are very heavy, such as suicidal thoughts, thoughts of harm to yourself or others, and possibly other triggering discussions. So if you are someone that could be triggered by discussions like that, please end the podcast now and rejoin us for our next episode, or go back and visit an old episode. But as always, we want this to remain a safe and enlightening space. So we want to give that little bit of insight before we dive into our topic today. Before we dive into our topic today, though, we are going to do our traditional breath with balance. So when you are ready, take a moment to center yourself and do a big inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And just allow that balance to come over you through your mind, through your heart, as we dive into today's topic. And today's topic is going to be, like I said, a little bit heavy. It's going to be all about mental health, as well as some of my recent experiences with mental health and some tools that we can utilize as we work through some of these really, really difficult situations through mental health. So Alyssa's here also. You've just been hearing my voice for a while now. Alyssa's here. Hi, Liz.
Hey,
Our
I just want to thank you for being willing and ready to be vulnerable and talk about really important topics that a lot of other people have or will experience in their life.
Thanks. Yeah. My licensed therapist best friend, she's just been a rock throughout the last month, and I'm so grateful for you. So to give everyone some insight, it has been a very heavy month and very much unexpected. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this today was because I felt so incredibly alone and so incredibly just distraught and almost numb. And if anyone else has gone through something similar, I want you to know that you are not the only person that has ever felt like this. And, you know, we say that out loud, but when you're in the moment, it really feels like this isn't normal. Other people don't think like this. Other people aren't afraid like this. Why is this happening to me? And I know that because I literally just experienced it on a very, very, very heavy level. So I'm going to take you a little bit through my experience, and then we'll talk a little bit about what it looks like when you kind of start to work through it and realize that you are not alone. So part of my experience, I feel, has just been very small things over time. I know, and I'm sure that Alyssa knows because she, you know, is a professional in this field, that sometimes really big life events happen, and some type of mental crises and or episode could come about. For me, I don't feel like that was the case. I feel like I had multiple little tiny scenarios that built up and got bigger and bigger. I'm not comfortable where I am in my life right now in terms of purpose. I have all these things that I never thought that I would ever have, that I know other people want. I have a wonderful husband and great friends and a supportive family and a home that's mine, the capabilities and the privileges to be able to travel and all these things. And yet I still find myself to be innately unhappy in the avenue of my career and what my purpose is in life. And that starts to feel incredibly lonely. Also, throughout my current employment, there have been some times where I feel as though I have been looked at or spoken to as if we're inept, and also degraded and a little bit talked down to, which normally I feel myself to be a very strong person, but after a couple of years, it really starts to wear on your self-worth. And I have, just some maybe unresolved trauma from my childhood and my college years that has been bubbling up, and I don't speak very kindly to myself. I have a lot of, self-esteem issues. And then the biggest part that I think happened was my dog died. And my dog for me was almost a remedy for anxiety and depression. He was my medication. I leaned on him a lot. And when he passed away, I've never felt more alone ever than that day. And I felt an extreme amount of guilt because he was so sick and so disabled that we had to assist with his passing. And that was really difficult for me. And then I think that the cherry on top of the sundae is that I was going to a doctor for an autoimmune disorder, and the doctor was not an honest doctor. And he was pumping me full of medications that once I got a second opinion, I found out that I should have never been on. And the side effects of those medications are suicidal thoughts, thoughts of harming yourself, harming others, increased depression, increased anxiety. And when I brought this to his attention, he basically gaslit me and told me, like, never in his 20 years has he ever heard of this. It had to be me. I need to keep taking this medication. It could take me 5 to 6 months to wean off of it. And then I went and got a second opinion, and I went to my PCP, and I went to my therapist, and everybody was like, that is absolutely untrue. You're going to stop taking this right now. He's only doing this to make money off of you. And it was startling because the thoughts, I think I had all of the things that I had mentioned before, and they were bubbling up, and then the medication had amplified it to a point where I didn't want to be on this earth anymore. I thought that I was going to harm my husband, which is the part that just still to this day hurts me the most. I love my husband very much, and he's literally the best person I know. And I'm just so grateful for him. And it's very scary. And so I say all that, and I share this experience to let you know that however alone you feel, you aren't ever truly alone. And I know that sounds very overplayed, but there was days where my husband would hug and kiss, and I couldn't even feel it because I was just so low, and I was so alone. And I'm still here, and I'm still fighting, and I just want to encourage all of you, if you're going through something like this, like, don't stop fighting, because you're not alone. Even if there's nobody in your life, if you don't have a husband, you don't have family, you don't have friends, like, you have us. We're here. Like, we'll talk to you. You can go to any hospital. There's a psychiatrist on staff in the emergency room. If you don't have health care and you're too afraid, there are crisis center hotlines that you can utilize. And I really, I urge you to do so, because even though still right now I am still fighting through the anxiety and sadness of all of this, I know that after the hardest part of it, that there's more. And I just don't want anyone to ever stop fighting, because it's horrible. It's really horrible.
Take a breath. Yeah. It's rough out here, right? You mentioned a lot of really important points. Maybe even like some guilt around like comparing yourself to things that you have that other people don't have, and maybe not being able to feel that gratitude at times. So even when we have some of the skills and tools in our toolbox, they're hard to get to. They don't work. This is an example of like when scenarios overplay the tools that we built and all the work that we did to make ourselves able to handle hard situations. I hate the phrase "the perfect storm," but it sounds like everything that you described is like built on top of another, built on top. not having the correct professional support in terms of like your doctor is huge. And then still you were able to reach out to the people who you could trust even when you couldn't trust yourself. And that is huge. You should be really proud of yourself. No should, coulds, or woulds, but I think you are proud of yourself, despite the fact that it's still hard.
Yeah. I go in between being, thank you. I go in between being proud and being terrified, and a little ashamed, because who wants to admit to feeling that way about themselves or like literally the closest person to them. But at the same time, I am proud because there are a lot of people out there that don't make it this far. And it's because they don't know just truly how much help there is, even if they can't afford it, even if they don't have, the same background as me. There's so many things that you can do. And I want to encourage people and let them know, like, you should never, ever stop advocating for yourself. You really, even at your worst, and I do believe, I've never been this low. The best I could compare it to is when I dropped out of college. You really have to be your own best friend, and you have to say to yourself, like, I am worth it, because you are. And there can be good things in your life, and there can be good people in your life. And sometimes, especially for those of us who are very independent, it's really, really hard to ask for help. But I would encourage you, if you are someone who has ever gone through something like this or similar, to ask for help and ask for it in any avenue that you can. My wallet is screaming, and it is worth it because I'm still here. I've literally utilized Alyssa as my best friend and also as a therapist. I hired a new psychiatrist. I go to therapy. I went from going once a week to 3 times a week. I have consulted multiple energetic and spiritual guides to help guide me through this. And those are just examples of ways that you can help yourself while utilizing money. There's plenty of things that you can do that don't cost anything at all. But I just wanted to list them to let you know, like, if there's no one personally in your life, someone out there cares. Complete strangers care. They do. It seems odd in today's world, but they do.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes a therapist's job, it's a lot of things, but sometimes it's to poke holes in the reality that you have created. There are many different versions of reality. And so that, like, all or nothing kind of thinking sometimes, like, I'm never going to be better. I'll always feel this way. I can't see any of the good. It's just all bad right now. Those are, really real things to feel. That's your reality in that moment. But when I look at something from an objective standpoint, I can see, like, all your strengths and all the things that you've already accomplished, and all of those really important things. So to poke holes and those kinds of thinking, I do want to just touch on, like, 2 really important, I think, themes that have exposed themselves. And I don't know which to talk about first, but I guess grief can kind of play into purpose. So those are the 2 I want to talk about. And so with grief, we can experience grief for the loss of chubs. We can experience grief for this concept of, like, not living to our potential, or, like, not checking the boxes we thought we were supposed to check. Grief comes in a lot of different forms, and it feels really different. It can feel like a foggy view over the way you see things. It can feel like just deep depression and not wanting to do anything. It can feel like hopelessness. Grief is such a freaking beast, and it needs to have attention around it, because as adults, it's like our responsibility to identify what our feelings are, I am feeling, not I am grief, but I'm feeling grief. I'm feeling sadness, and really kind of picking apart those things. And grief is still so vague and like doesn't even feel like an emotion necessarily. It's just like this whole, as I said again, beast. And then with purpose, like we can grieve purpose. But Emily mentioned like, you know, I have all of these things I love, all of these things I want, and I'm lacking purpose in my career. I don't like to like interject myself into therapeutic interventions, into like my one-on-ones with people. But for me, sure, being a therapist is a purpose. Helping people is a purpose. But I cannot identify with one purpose. I just can't, because if something goes wrong, or if I fail someone, or they, you know, they can't find the help that they need, I cannot have one purpose. So I try to find purposes, porpoise. So getting involved in my community, my local community, like giving more value to other purposes. Absolutely, it's so important. If career is something that like is one of your huge values, to find purpose within it, huge, really important. I still really encourage finding purpose outside of the career. I walk dogs. I volunteer in an animal shelter. I love to seek out really yummy food. Like to me, that is a purpose for my body. It's a purpose for me. So maybe like taking some of the power out of like, oh, my purpose. Because Emily, you found purpose in being a wife, in being a dog mom, in being a friend. Like those are also purposes. And yet we'll still grieve the ones that we, you know, haven't gotten to yet or haven't discovered.
Yeah. I would like to bring light to part of what Alyssa is saying, because it is so important. And I think that part of the reason that I got to where I'm at, or where I was, is that I feel like I am lacking purpose right now, especially specifically career wise, and just bigger picture wise. I just feel like there's something better out there for me, and I'm not quite sure what that is, which is scary. I don't do well with the unknown. I don't know a lot of people that do. I mean, some people are thrilled by it. Me personally, I enjoy control. That being said, I'd also like to shine some light on, if you are in the middle of depression, if you are in the middle of anxiety, you can say that you want purpose, and it's great to think about these options that you have. But I want to acknowledge how extremely hard it is to actually do it. I forced myself, and you may have to force yourself, to get up and start a mural the other day. A mural I have been talking about starting for months, because I knew that I wanted to do it, but I just didn't have, like, I couldn't. There was no way to describe that other than like, I just can't. I don't have motivation. I don't have drive. I don't have joy. I can't get up. All I can do is sit here. And it's really hard, if you've never been through that, to describe it to people who have never felt it, because there is actually nothing physically wrong with you. Like, your leg's not broken, so you can get up and do it, but you also cannot. And so if you are in the middle of that, if you are having those feelings right now, just know that the thought, there will come a time, it will happen for you, where you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't feel like doing it. I'm unmotivated, but I'm going to get up and do it anyways. And the next day becomes a little easier. And then the next day becomes a little easier, because what Alyssa is talking about is super important. But I also don't want to completely dive into that without acknowledging, like, it is really hard to find the purpose when you can't even find the will to stand up.
Mm-hmm. I was just talking about this with a client who is experiencing gender affirming care right now. And we were talking about just like building your resilience muscle, right?
Yeah.
So everyone at some point in their lives will probably experience the lack of willpower, whether it be in the form of depression or laziness or anything in between those things. And so, like Emily said, just like starting is sometimes the hardest part. And it might not be making a mural for 4 hours in one day. It might just be like getting the paints out or like starting to look at the paints. Maybe look at them and just think about what colors you want to use for 10 days or
For me,
however long.
it's deciding what paint to buy. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think resilience only really comes with struggle, and no one wants to struggle, but there's this concept called radical acceptance, and it's like, I don't want this to happen, but I have to know that it's going to, and I might not like it or love it, but I have to be aware that it's probably still going to happen. And I think that that helps to build this resilience muscle. And yeah, it all looks different for everyone, but building that muscle is so important. And again, it might be harder some days than others, but with me and my struggles, like as an only child, as my mom who lost her partner, my dad, there were some times when I was like, if I don't do it, no one's going to do it for me. Like there is no one that is going to help pick me up off this floor. So I need to crawl towards the door to grab onto it and pick myself up. And so I think that having that inner deep struggle and knowing that that is the case, like having friends are great, having a support system is wonderful, but like Emily said, like becoming your best friend even when you're like lying on the floor. It's great to have a Troy and him to be there to like hug you and love you. It was interesting being your best friend from a long way away and wanting to help. I couldn't give you a hug or kiss. And so really kind of like digging into the tools that I thought might be helpful was nice for me to have as a friend. And so I think if you're not a therapist or you're not someone that's struggling right now, it's important to still know what to do when you are starting to struggle or when you have someone who loves you and needs help. So one thing that Emily and I did was like play out the worst case scenario, play out the best case scenario, like really think about what you're afraid of so you can look at that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that was like for you. I think in the moment it was still really scary, but we did talk through those things.
Yeah, it was scary. And it for anyone who has experienced similar thoughts of not wanting to exist, or maybe even thoughts of harming like your partner, or if you have an animal or something like that, I thought I was going to have a psychotic break and spend the rest of my life in a loony bin, and that was a huge fear for me. And it was really scary for me to have to say these things out loud to Alyssa, because, and this comes in a little bit to my energy work, where it was scary because I was judging myself, and it was scary because I didn't want you or Troy to judge me for having those thoughts, and for like having to say them out loud made it almost real. And it was like truthfully horrifying to say to you, like, I think I just don't want to be here, or I'm afraid, like, what if I hurt Troy? What if I take him with me? Like, it was the most uncomfortable thing. It's uncomfortable to say it right now. It feels extremely shameful. I know a little bit better now that I'm coming down from the experience, but I still have a lot of work to do because I feel this guilt about having ever thought that way. And I felt immense guilt and fear in the moment when we had to play it out, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're in a crisis, there's some options, and it's like assessing where you're at, like 1 through 10. How high are my emotions? If my emotions are 7 or above, I need to use my distress tolerance skills. I need to stop, distract myself from things, use my five senses. Emily was like going on walks when she was really high, not on a high, like a good high, but like high up in emotion. Um, and then I know that you like did a lot of paced breathing, muscle relaxation. You changed the temperature to kind of like bring yourself back to your body. You're taking some baths and things like that. They had good sense with them. So when you were in kind of that crisis mode, like crying and like heightened, you were using the distress, like crisis survival skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then once Emily kind of got herself down lower, which, you know, certainly took effort, certainly took practice. It wasn't just like, I'd like to be less emotional right now.
A couple of days, and honestly, sometimes it still comes back and I have to do it again.
Mm-hmm. But then with that, like once you realize, okay, I'm out of like this intense crisis, like I can actually think about how I'm feeling versus like, oh my God, everything scares me. I don't have an emotion to name. I'm just like too much. I can't. Then you can get to emotion regulation, which is like 7 and below on the scale of intensity of your emotions. And those things are like checking the facts, using opposite action. Like when you don't want to do something, it's like, okay, I'm going to just try that thing. Like I haven't eaten in a day. Okay, I got to eat something. Identifying if there's a problem that you can solve. Maybe there's not. I know that Emily has a problem that she's solving that we will not talk about right now, but it's very cute.
It's okay. You can talk about it. It's all
okay.
right.
Well, why don't you talk about it?
Are you talking about my control issues?
Oh, I was talking about a dog.
Oh yeah, no, we can talk about that. Yeah. Well, I do have control issues. My other therapist, who is not my best friend, who is just my therapist, she made a very good point, because I have these days where I get so frustrated because I'll have a great day, and then I'll have a day where I told even Melissa earlier, like yesterday, I was on a work call for like 6 hours, just crying the entire time. I couldn't stop. And it's like, how do you go from having a day where you just feel like a normal human being to that? And it's very frustrating. And I talked to my therapist about it, and she was like, but do you really want to go back to being the quote unquote normal Emily who needs to control everything and have all the answers? Because that sounds really stressful. And she makes a really good point where it's like, you're right. Like there are just some things in life I need to accept that I cannot control. But that will take time. Mm-hmm. This that Alyssa is talking about takes a little bit less time, which is I'm an animal person. I've been told that. I've been like that my whole life. You could ask my mom, like all my books as a child were like nerd biology books about animals and the environment. And I do better when there are animals around. I've always been that way. When I would go to Alyssa's house as a kid, I would spend all my time with her dog. Like it's just always been like that for me. And so when I lost Chubbs, it was heartbreaking in a number of ways, but it also really leaned into feeling alone and not having that energy here with me. And I felt very guilty. Like I don't want to get another dog because the dog will never be Chubbs, and the dog's not going to know my nuances or how to make them better. I don't want to resent the dog for not being Chubbs and all these things. I had all these excuses as to why I'm not going to get another dog. And then when I was in the heat of crisis, Alyssa was like, maybe you should just think about getting another dog. Like maybe that just actually makes you feel better. And I was like, I don't know. And then I thought about it. And I talked to my other therapist about it, and she was like, well, yeah, I've been trying to tell you that for weeks. Just took your friend to tell you, kind of thing. And so Troy and I did decide that we are going to get another dog. His name is Tigger. He comes home in July. He is a rescue. He's wonderful and sweet. And I can happily say that I have gone to visit him, because we're visiting him until we can actually bring him home. We'll visit him at the shelter. and spend time with him. And I have gone on some days where the anxiety and the fear has been so heightened and so unbearable. And then we go and visit Tigger for an hour and a half, and it's like I can come down from that a bit and just focus on him and really have that connection with him. And I look at him and I see purpose and I see, a reason to be here. And I haven't really been able to feel joy, but I look at him and I get excited, like my new best friend is going to come home, So yeah, I'm working through all of those emotions right now. Correct.
There's a reason why there are emotional support dogs. There are a reason why people spend more money on their dogs than getting kids or having kids. And so I think that's like changing an emotional response. It's like the grief is still going to be there for the loss of Chubbs. But grief can also be intentionally postponing joy and just like suffering because you feel like you should. And it's like, no, if there's another animal that will also bring you some peace of mind, a sound of body, like get you out to go on walks and like have someone to take care of, then to me that's solving a problem that seems like a great and easy choice. And I'm just really proud of you for, not, I mean, you'll always mourn Chubbs, but to not solo mourn Chubbs and never, help another animal or, find that outlet. So
it's interesting too, because if you are part of the healing community, if you're interested in energetic source at all, you would know you might know who Ray Jessie is. She's a healer that I met when I was in Arizona. She's originally from Scotland, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And I actually have another reading coming up with her in June, which I'm very excited about. But in my past work with her, she actually said to me, "Do you work with animals?" And I said, "No, I do not." And she said, "You should. You should always be surrounded by animals. That's like really important for you." And I think about that quite frequently as I'm trying to navigate through this mental health issue that I am having, where I'm like, maybe she was onto something. Obviously she knew what she was talking about. But maybe there's something to that. Like, I do need to be surrounded by animals. They do give me a purpose. They bring me light. I like to be outside, those kinds of things. And so I just encourage you on that note as well. If you are someone who has any type of faith, maybe you're Catholic, you call it prayer, maybe you're Presbyterian, maybe you're Hindu, maybe you're like me and you don't really put it in a box. You just work with energy and you believe in the source of all that is. Lean into that. It's been extremely helpful for me. Energy readings, energy clearings, energy healings. Next, I have an appointment for an energy psychosis, which I've never done before, and I'm very excited about it. But there was something that one of my healers said to me that I thought was so important, and that was, medication, if it's necessary, it's necessary, and you should do what you feel is best for you and always advocate for yourself. But medication can only give you a boost for so long. Medication can't reignite the light in your soul. And I don't mean to make it, Jesus-y. That's not the point here. The point is that the will inside of you and the hope that you carry for yourself is not going to be fixed by a pill. You have to be willing to do the work to do that for yourself. And I honestly never thought I would say that out loud again, because I didn't think I would ever get to this point. I really, truly, and honestly thought, like, everyone's telling me I'm going to be, everyone, every single one of my resources is telling me that it's going to be okay, but I don't believe it. I don't trust myself. I'm never going to get there. I'm going to either end up dead or in a loony bin for the rest of my life. And I'm not. And as I continue to work through this, if you are struggling to hold on and have hope for yourself, I really recommend that you do what you need to do to regain your faith. Join a church, find a spiritual group. If you want to talk about energy healing, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about that with you. I personally work within Reiki, but there's so many other sources that you can go through. There's quantum healing, there's somatic healing, there's a lot to it. So I think that's a really important resource for people as well, that they don't necessarily recognize during a mental health crisis is like innately important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm glad that this is an example of Emily in action, making all the efforts in the world to heal and to find wholeness. And, we're never going to be completely whole all the time, but to just get closer to that feeling. And it's always a work in progress, but like finding your light, that can be all of the things that Emily said, that can be like a sport, that can be eating a certain way, that can be having control over a certain aspect of your life. It can absolutely be finding a spiritual path, and maybe that's a long-term goal, but maybe at first that's like really hard to see that. And so there are a lot of options there, but that's a crisis survival skill directly. Improving the moment. The word improve is an acronym for imagery, meaning, prayer, relaxation, finding one thing in the moment that maybe brings you light, right? Mm-hmm. So like if it's too hard to see 10 minutes away, then like what's this one thing that brings me joy? For me, it's having plants around all the place. Like I have it on my office desk, all through the house. That's just something that's like a really poignant short-term thing for me that just brings me so much light. And then the V in improve is vacation, whether it's like taking a break from something that you don't want to do. Maybe it's taking a vacation, like Emily going to Hawaii. That's rad. And then the E is for self-encouragement. So finding ways to encourage yourself during the difficult times. Again, it's a muscle, it's a practice, it's a skill. It's not just something that you pick out of the sky and it comes to you. It's hard, and it does get easier the more you work it. I promise.
I'd like to go back to vacation for a moment, because I think people hear that word and they think something similar to like a vacation to Hawaii. But if you've been on our Instagram page, you'll notice that we took a vacation from social media. And that's mostly because for me, social media is extremely triggering. I also believe something that has led to me being very fearful is our current administration. I'm afraid for what's going to happen to the planet. I'm afraid for what's going to happen to me as a woman, and the people that I love that are women. I'm afraid of what's going to happen for people of minorities with disabilities, that my people that I love in all of the gay community. It really and truly impacts me in a way that I carry very heavily in my heart. And I don't encourage being misinformed, because I think it's important that we're all informed, especially about, the preservation and the love of our planet and other people. But it's overload being on the internet. So taking a vacation can be, not getting on Instagram, not getting on TikTok, spending more time in the present moment. Maybe I work in HR currently, and I'll tell you what, a lot of people don't utilize their FMLA, and they really should. So you can use that to take a break from your job, take your PTO. That's why you have it. Don't let them trick you into thinking that you can't take time off. Fuck them. They'll replace you in a second, So vacation is important. PTO doesn't mean that you have to get on a plane. PTO can mean that you go outside and do your garden because it brings you joy, or walk at a local park. There's lots of things that vacation can mean, and I think it was a really important call out that Alyssa said, like it could be an actual vacation where you travel, or it could just be taking a break from something that's really stimulating for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Well said.
Thanks. If it's okay with you, before we go into our meditation, I'd just like to provide a couple other things that have been working for me as I work through this. Meditation is one of them. So we are going to close in our traditional sense with the meditation for me. Not for me, for you guys, but for me, visualization meditations are really helpful because it forces me to think about something else. I'm also reading a book right now called The Upward Spiral, where it teaches you all about the connections and the circuits in your brain and what parts of your brain are being affected when you are going through a depressive episode, or when you are having anxiety or a panic attack or an anxiety attack, or paranoia. And it also then at the end of the book goes into ways, very small free ways, that you can recircuit your brain to start going in the other direction, which is getting sunlight right before bed helps release serotonin and melatonin, things like that. So that's very helpful. Absolutely, going outside has been helpful for me. I recommend, if you can, to move your body, go back to our previous episodes of nature therapy and yoga and see if you connect with any of that. And I think that the thing that has helped me the most, that my spiritual guides have really encouraged me to do, is just saying the truth out loud. So if that means I have a really terrible thought and I'm afraid of it, I'm just going to look at my husband and tell him what it was. Or if I'm feeling scared and I don't want to be in my house by myself, I'm going to call one of my friends or family members and ask them to come sit with me so that I'm not by myself. Or if I'm afraid I'm going to go crazy and end up in a loony bin and I can't get out of the spiral, I'm going to call Alyssa and say that out loud. Because when you speak it, it allows you to hear yourself, and whether or not that is actually the truth starts to actually dawn on you. So I really, really encourage you to utilize the resources that we've given you today. Utilize your local community resources. Reach out to us if you need help. And it's just a reminder that even at the loneliest times, you're really and truly not alone. I promise that you're not. And just because we have a microphone in front of us doesn't mean that we also don't experience these things, which is why today was so important to me to talk to you all. And I really thank you for giving me grace and listening.
Yeah. Thanks, Em. Those are all incredibly important and huge tools, one after the next. So it just really shines light on how much work Emily has done in this time, and like how she's utilized a vacation, if you will, to some degree. And then I think one thing too that Emily and I do whenever she has called me is she says the things out loud. And then one of my favorite practices, and like I said, kind of poking holes in the reality that we're making, is to challenge myths. And so when Emily says, I'm scared, it's like, okay, let's challenge that. I'm feeling the emotion of fear, but this emotion does not define me. That's a challenge. That brings power back into your feelings instead of, something like becoming you. Emily said, I'm alone. Emily, I heard her say way more times today, I am not alone. So even if it's just putting an opposite in front of a feeling is really powerful to start to train our minds to think in a way that we want, because it comes back to this control, right? And like going back to spiritual purpose, finding meaning, prayer, a mantra is plenty of that. Having one mantra that you focus on each day. Maybe it changes per day. Maybe it's your mantra for the year, whatever it may be. Maybe your mantra is just, I am not alone. I am not alone. So these are really important things to just know of, right? Like, you don't have to go do them right now. Listen to this again, reach out to us. Tools are really important. But yeah, so I think with like ending meditation, you can create it yourself. Emily was saying earlier when we were talking before this, sometimes she'll listen to a video and like the voice just doesn't work for her. Something doesn't work. Maybe the music behind it is distracting. All of those things are super valid. I think it's an incredible skill to have meditation inside of your head, right? Like, your voice is not annoying. It is your voice, even if it's not spoken out loud or in your head. And so having some things that might work for you, visualization is one that Emily has identified. Maybe visualization plus coping ahead. So options like, oh, I'm about to go on vacation. I'm going to think about tide pooling, which is a verb, which is magic. So like going and looking around in low tide at in the ocean or near the ocean in your mind, right? You don't have to go on vacation. You can go on vacation in your mind. Using the senses in your visualization. Again, these are just options and ideas for if you want to try on your own too. But like, what does the water feel like? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is the water that sat in the tide pool warmer than the water that's like washing up on shore? How bright are those anemones? Whenever anemones aren't in water, they turn to like a darker color. It's crazy. And then when they're in water, they're like these neon colors. I've had the wonderful privilege of experiencing this, so I can use my past experiences for visualizations. So imagining you're in one of your favorite places you've been is perfect. That's a great visualization. So yeah, that's just some ideas, focusing on different sensations you've maybe had in your life or want to feel again. Doing a body scan, which I think I'm going to try to weave a body scan into the idea of like being in water. So you'll see. I'm going to make this one up as I go, but I think it will be nice.
I love it. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we hope that you enjoy this meditation gifted to us by Alyssa. I know that I will, because body scans are my absolute favorite, and my favorite element, if you've listened to past episodes, is water. So I'm really grateful. And just before you take us into meditation, Liz, I just want everyone to know how grateful I am for you and how much of a rock you've been my whole life, but specifically in the last month. And I just love you so much. And I'm so grateful for everything you've taught me.
I thought you were talking to the podcast people. And then I was like, oh, she's talking to me.
Okay, we're ready to meditate. Thank you all for being here. And we love you very much. And you are not alone.
All right. Contrary to popular belief, you don't have to sit still for meditation. So if you want to take any movements beforehand, if anything, comes over you during, feel free to move. You don't have to find complete stillness to meditate. Take some deep breaths, maybe take some neck rolls. Find yourself in a comfortable seated position. Just notice your breath as you increase your inhales, increase the length, and strengthen the exhales, intentionally breathing. The one thing we always do, the one thing that we most of the time have control over, one of the things we can notice if we don't have control over our breathing, and the next steps with that. So find a little moment for gratitude in that breath and your ability to be here now. Just breathe. You can breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. If your nose is stuffy and you have allergies, you can breathe in through your nose if you can, and exhale through your mouth. Start to imagine you are at your favorite body of water. Maybe you're sitting on a warm rock next to the water. Is the water extremely still? Do you notice waves pushing towards shore? Waves pushing back out to shore? Imagining them as your thoughts coming in towards you, pushing back out, moving along. What other sensations do you feel while sitting on this rock? The wind blowing on your face, a light breeze, warm air. When you put your hands down, maybe on the rock or next to you, are you noticing sand in your hands, on your hands? Are you noticing a soft grass? As you slowly push off of this rock, maybe you dip your toes into the water, just your toes, postponing the will to want to stick your feet in and move them around, making the water move quickly, creating waves and splashes. Notice the slowness of your breathing as you try to imagine the slow movement of dipping your toes into the water. Maybe you slowly dip your feet. Maybe your ankles are in the water now. Just allowing yourself stillness, slowness. Noticing if your breath has changed as you dip your lower body into the water, moving your bottom off of the rock and into the water. Does your breath speed up if the water is really cold? If the water was still, what do the waves look like that you've created? Seeing how we affect water can show where we leave our mark in the world. I am here. I can see it. I can see the movement of the water from me entering the water. I'm disrupting this wave that crashes into me. Maybe as you're sitting in the water, a fish swims up. The water is really clear. It's cooling to the touch, cools you from the warm sun. Maybe you notice fear come into your mind. Oh, maybe there's sharks in the water in the distance. But you allow that thought to come into your mind and exit with the waves. And now maybe you slither further into the water. Maybe you roll onto your stomach and everything is in the water except your head, or maybe your shoulders and your elbows are on top of a part of something in the water. So you're partially in the water. Always returning to the breath. Maybe the breath changes. Your organs and your heart is now submerged in the water. Maybe they're working a little bit differently inside. Maybe they haven't noticed quite yet. As your face is so close to the water, what do you notice being leveled to it? Maybe there's some bugs on the top of the water, and you watch them play around and move to the tune of the wind. Maybe in the distance you see a fish pop up to try to eat one. So allowing these images to embrace you, surround you. You have the choice to push away any thoughts that come to mind that aren't serving you right now. Maybe you'll revisit them later. As you prepare to dunk your head in the water, you're more in control of that breath. You likely will take a big inhale and submerge your head into the water. As you dip down into it, maybe your nose exhales to make sure the water doesn't get up in your nose. You stay here for a moment, holding your breath, having control over when you breathe and where your body is in this moment. And then you dip back up, taking a big inhale. Maybe this is your practice. Maybe this is a meditation. Imagining dipping your head into the water and out of the water and controlling your breath accordingly. Inhaling for 4 seconds. Exhaling for 4 more. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe you hold your breath for a moment for 2, and then exhale all the breath. Noticing when you inhale and prepare to dunk your head into the water, your hair falls away, letting gravity fall away in this moment. Your hair is flying around. And then when you exhale and come back up into the water or into the air, your hair drops back down. All of these little bits of sensations are beautiful ways to practice meditation. And when you're ready, maybe you slowly bring your body back to shore, wherever you are at. Allowing the sun to dry you naturally. Imagining what that might feel like. Imagining your body being literally hydrated. Your skin taking a big slurp of water. Maybe this process makes you thirsty and you want to take a sip of water yourself. Noticing any urges or sensations is a skill and a practice from being mindful, from taking the time to notice what's going on inside of your body. And when you're ready, just finding any movement. Maybe you imagine doing yoga on the rock, or you do some yoga after this, but taking the time to thank your body for breathing its way through this practice and thanking yourself for being here. And we thank you for being here in this point in time with us. It will always look different. The struggle will always change. Sometimes it might be just a beautiful day in your life. And I hope that for you for the rest of this day.
Thanks for being here.